Hello. Hello. Sorry I trailed out there. I'm lecture's done, and now we're just going to take up the questions. Okay, so we'll keep this very short for you. So what is a proto notary of the Federal Court of Canada? So we talked a lot about that in the lectures. So if you want to know what that is, go back and review it. But they are, again, it's also outlined in the notes. They are sort of equivalent of the provincial masters. They help move things along. They maximize scarce judicial resources. They first appeared on the federal court scene in 1971, and the list of things that they can hear and cannot hear is listed in the Federal Court Act. So the enabling statute of the rules, Federal Courts Act. Let's look in section 12, proto notaries. Okay. That's what they have in terms of, how they come about, section 12. And then the rules are set out in, the rules of what they can hear is set out in the rules themselves. And let me just go back there. Amendments in this rules. I'll just pause it as I look. Sorry, it's and just look at the powers of the court. Let's look at proto notaries, section 50 on the nose. A proto notary may hear or make any necessary orders relating to any motion under the rules, etc., etc. So that's sort of what a proto notary does. Question number 2: what powers does a proto notary have? Everything but look at section 50 of the Federal Courts Act. Question number 3. What is the name of the court that had many of the Federal Court of Canada's responsibilities prior to 1971? The Exchequer Court of Canada. Where does one, question number 4, where does one appeal from the Federal Court of Canada? We go up to the Federal Court of Appeal. Federal Court of Appeal. And that goes back, let's go back again to the enabling statute, Federal Courts Act, judgments from the jurisdiction of the Federal Court of Appeal. We hear, it's appeals from the federal court, appeals from the tax court, and then judicial review. So let's keep moving here. Federal Court of Appeal, here's, okay, let's go. Sorry, question number 6, judicial review. So which of the following administrative tribunals or commissions can be judicially reviewed at the Federal Court of Appeal? Let's go through. It's over the next page. Section 28 of the Federal Court Act. And so let's look here. Canada, hold on, nothing important. Okay, so let's look at some of the Canadian International Trade Tribunal. Where is it? It's there. Yep, it is. So section 28, subsection 1, clause, we'll just go E. Okay, E. Manitoba Labor Board. Manitoba should be your first hint. It's not there. That would be likely judicially reviewed by a divisional court or its equivalent in Manitoba. I'm not sure. Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner of the House of Commons. Yes, that is Bravo 1, a Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner, appointed under Section 81 of the Parliament of Canada Act. Appeal Division of the Social Security Tribunal, that's G Golf. It's under Section 44 of the Department of Employment and Social Development Act. Canada Industrial Labour Relations Board. H, Hotel, which is established under the Canada Labour Code, Canada Labour Code. Ontario Human Rights Tribunal, no, that is Ontario. Again, you should, the hint is in the name. And the Copyright Board, where's the Copyright Board, is J, Juliet J. Enabling statute there is the Copyright Act. So, okay. Question number 7, where is a decision from the Court of Appeal appealed? That goes straight up to the Supreme Court of Canada. And that, we'll just move past that because that's actually not in this statute. So that's not something you'll see in the exam. How do you find the court filing fees before bringing an action at the federal court? So let's just say you need to, you're working in a firm and they need to know, how are we going to pay for this thing? So we know it's in the rules. We go down to the fees. We see the fees are set out in Tariff A. So we continue down to Tariff A, and that gives us all of our fees. So Section 48 of the Federal Courts Act, that's when you're going to sue the government. It's only $2, and so on and so forth down the line. So there are your fees from Tariff A. And what is the role of a judicial administrator? What is the role of a judicial administrator? So let's look at the enabling statute, the Federal Courts Act. We will go to, there is Section 14. The federal court, the Chief Justice of the Federal Court of Appeal may designate an employee of the service as a judicial administrator of the Federal Court of Appeal. And so on. Duties at the federal court, the judicial administrator of the federal court shall perform any non-judicial work that may be delegated to him or her by the Chief Justice in that court in accordance with instructions. So from what I can tell, this is sort of a civil service role that is performed there. So hey, maybe it's a job you might have. That'd be cool. Oh, and question number 10, what is the equivalent of the Ontario Rules of Civil Procedure number 1 at the federal court rule, or 2.11? So let's have a look. So we go to our annual practice, we go to find the rule, and we find the original rule, and we just sort of check out what it, so 2.11, non-compliance. A failure to comply with these rules is an irregularity and does not render a proceeding or a step, document, or order in the proceeding a nullity, and the court may grant necessary amendments, etc., only when necessary. So we're looking at those, in the early rules of the Rules of Civil Procedure of Ontario, Rule 104, 2.01, those rules that deal with sort of, if a mistake is made through the process, it doesn't mean we have to go back to the very beginning. So what is the equivalent rule there? So we're looking for non-compliance, nullity, we're looking for that sort of thing. So, okay, I find it. Go to Part 3, Section 55, or Section 56, failure, and 56 and 55, failure to comply with the rules. Section 56, almost the same in terms of wording. Non-compliance with any of these rules does not render a proceeding, a step in a proceeding, or an order void. There's nullity there, but a void, I like void better, but instead constitutes an irregularity which may be addressed under the rules. So again, the point of that question is not to sort of get all pedantic with you, but it's just to give you a sense that there is a coherence to the various rules of the courts in both Ontario and Canada. There are sort of parallel elements to them for you to just consider. So if you're ever put in a situation where you are, you don't know what's going on, and you're like, I've never done the federal rules before, you'll find sort of similarities. So don't ever fear them. Okay, so let's look at the problem question number 1 here. And basically, Captain Carswell So Captain Carswell owns a medium-sized boating company that operates party boat-style charters on Lake Huron in Ontario. One day she left port in Kincardine in her boat, My Way. It was full of birthday revelers and was late September. It was late September. Captain Carswell did not check the weather forecast that day. Okay, so first of all, let's pull this thing apart immediately. Okay, this is what you should be thinking about right away. So federal boat charters, Lake Huron. So we're looking at maritime law. We're looking at the federal court already. We have that feeling. Did not check the weather forecast that day. Would a reasonable, just look at a reasonable person standard, sort of, a reasonable person standard. Would a reasonable person check the weather forecast that day if they're going out on Lake Huron? And for those of you who don't know, Lake Huron is up there. It's about a 3-hour drive, maybe 2, and it is a big inland sea. It is huge. You can take a boat out on the water and go as far almost to the middle of the lake, and you can't see any land around you. It's massive. So I know people who have done that in small little boats, and that seems crazy to me. They have boating charters there. They have fishing, commercial fisheries there. It is a big inland sea. No, I'm not on the tourist board. I'm not on the take. It's just a beautiful lake. Just one more thing. If you go up there, and again, you can see the water go down over, or see the sun go down over the water, and it's like you're on the west coast. It goes down over the water. It's beautiful. So, okay. I digress. Okay, so, and a professional captain, she should, she definitely should check the weather forecast that day. So 1 hour into the voyage, Captain Carswell was forced to turn around because of a fast-moving storm on the massive lake. On her way back to port, she was rammed, the facts are unclear, by a larger lake transport named the Big Red. Thankfully, everyone on board survived, but My Way sunk at a considerable cost to Captain Carswell. The Big Red is owned by Red Transportation Limited of Hamilton, Ontario, and its captain is named Edward Smith. A little joke there, the captain of the Titanic was also named as Edward Smith. Okay. Number 1, she decides to do so. If she decides to do so, in what court should Captain Carswell bring an action for negligence against Red Transportation? State the reason and supporting rule. Okay, so how would we do this? Let's go back to the Federal Courts Act. Okay, just sort of. So we're going to go back to the Federal Courts Act. Now, there might be some sort of, one of the things that I really got to thinking about here is, do the Great Lakes count as sort of federal? But, like, is there any way that they wouldn't? But realistically, I just got thinking that it's the Canadian Coast Guard is on the lakes, on the Great Lakes. So, and you can take a ship all the way from Toronto all the way down to the Bahamas if you want. So yeah, so let's just look at sort of what are we talking about here? Federal Courts Act. So we know from their lecture that we just saw that we would go back and look at, it's not a court of inherent jurisdiction. So for the most part, there's going to be the legal action won't be taken at the Ontario level. But basically, let's go down here. Maritime jurisdiction. So I'm on section 22. The federal court has concurrent original jurisdiction between subject and subject, as well as otherwise, in all claims in which a claim is made, a claim for relief is made, or a remedy is sought under the or by virtue of Canadian maritime law or any other law relating to any matter coming within a class of subject of navigation shipping, except. So, okay, for greater clarity. Title possession of a ship, not really applicable. Issue arising co-ownership of a ship. Mortgage, no. Any claim for damage or loss of life or personal injury caused by a ship, either in collision or otherwise. So that's the answer here. So this is a federal jurisdiction on account of Section 22.1, or sorry, strike that, Section 22.2, subsection or clause D delta. Any claim for damage or loss of personal injury. Okay, so there it is. So we're going to the federal court. There is your supporting rule. Federal Court Act, Section 22.2 D as in Delta. Okay. At trial, Red Transport wants to introduce an expert witness stating that had Captain Carswell checked the daily forecast, she would not have taken my way out that day. Can Red Transportation do that? State the rule. Okay, so we're looking, what are we looking at? We're looking at expert witnesses. So we see nothing in the enabling statute, the Federal Courts Act. So let's roll down to the Federal Court Rules and let's look for expert witnesses. So expert witnesses, where is it? Expert witnesses, Part 3, Rule 52.1, expert witness. Any party to a proceeding, so that includes Red Transportation, any party in proceeding may name an expert witness whether or not an assessor has been called under Rule 52. What is an accessor? What is an assessor? So let's have a look. So anyway, question 2, can an expert witness be called? Yes, there's your rule. The court has determined independently that it requires assistance into the technical aspects of the weather patterns of Lake Huron. It needs to assess the situation. There's my little hint because we haven't seen assessors at the provincial court level or the superior court level. Can the court do this? So same sort of ballpark here. What is an assessor? Rule 52. 52.1. A court may call an assessor to assist the court in understanding technical evidence. I suspect this would be big when dealing with intellectual property. Actually, when you think of it, aviation, intellectual property, there's a lot of things at the federal court level that are very complex. So that's the rules allow for the court to call upon an expert themselves to assist the court in understanding technical evidence, provide a written opinion to a proceeding. So there is your assessor. The court can do that. The rule is 52.1. Captain Carswell loses at court but wants to appeal. Where does she appeal this matter? State the supporting rule. So let's go have a look. We've dealt with it before. We know the Federal Courts Act has the jurisdiction of the Court of Appeal. So let's look. So we're at Federal Courts Act Section 27.1. An appeal lies to the federal court for any of the following decisions of the federal court: a final judgment, a judgment on a question of law determined before the trial, and interlocutory judgment, determination on a reference. Okay, I think 27.1a, a final judgment, is there. So Carswell wants to appeal this matter. The judgment, basically she's found at fault, etc. She's found negligent, whatever. Then she goes to the Federal Court of Appeal. That